People in Iowa are paying for this. Who doesn't pay? The people that ride it. Wonder why those ridership numbers are good. Who benefits? Developers, bankers, transit firms, Hampton Roads Transit. Who doesn't benefit?
Us.
You. These are the most current audited numbers from HRT. This is the operating summary for the City of Norfolk for all of their transit. This is their light rail budget. Now, what's interesting about this is the numbers came in better than light rail projected. It cost them less money than they thought that it would cost them. And their fare collection was higher than they projected, also good. But what was interesting to me when I read these numbers was the service cost per hour. While I was kind of looking at these numbers in here and the percentages paid and all of that, that's a stunning statistic. Did you notice that? Buses cost $81.63 for service hour with a ridership of 6.6 million. Light rail costs $314.07 with a ridership of 1.7 million. Gee, maybe we could do better with buses.
I think so.
If we're broke. Fare recovery is 13.5%. It was estimated to be 10%. During the meeting, it was stated by Ray Amoruso of HRT, the cost of riding that train from Newtown Road to EVMS is $8. That's what it costs. They charge you $1.50. You pay the rest. And if you live in Iowa, you pay 50% of the rest. Doing the math, where did I get these numbers? How did I come up with this? 7.4 miles at $9.4 million a year from audited numbers. Fare collection, 1.2 million. Proposed beach extension, 13.5. Multiplied the distance by that. Multiplied this by the offset to get this here. Got 17.2 million. Subtracted the 2.3 million in projected fare collection. And our ballpark estimate is a subsidy of $14.9 million. Based on HRT's numbers in Norfolk. You've seen this slide before. Cost to subsidize planned TOD unknown. Reality check. We can't afford this. It's a developer banker welfare program. Fare structure. Nothing fair about it. If you happen to buy one of these passes down here, a 30-day pass for $35, you pay $1.14 a day to ride every bus, the light rail, the ferry, or anything you want. But the cost of that is somewhere in the neighborhood of $25 of service. And you pay the difference. Now, is it amazing how this ridership works? Reality check. The funding strategy by Hampton Roads Transit is unsustainable. I told you this is a financial cancer. You need to stop the spread of this. Keep it at Norfolk. If this gets into our city, it's going to spread and spread. The more it spreads, the bigger the financial cancer. Can you spell bankruptcy? Not if you're HRT, because the taxpayers subsidize your budget. What's this all about? Urban redevelopment, transit-oriented development. We used this slide before. We were told in Norfolk when they built, this is light rail right here. Runs right there. This is across from the federal building. Buddy Gadam, I'm going to build this amazing tower. We're going to have all this transit-oriented development. But we had a housing bubble, and the banks aren't lending money for this anymore. So what is it? It's a hole in the ground. But worse, because they got tired of looking at a hole in the ground, now it's a taxpayer-funded park on top of the hole in the ground. Strategic growth areas, they equal redevelopment. I'm going to roll through this quickly. From our study, strategic growth areas, project goal is light rail. We have 13 strategic growth areas for Virginia Beach based on our website. You read this, it's light rail transportation is the key to strategic growth areas. SDGAs are designed for the greater use of alternative transportation system. This is from the city's website. Transit-oriented development. We look over here for light rail, and the amount of money they make in their projections is much greater than buses. That's probably why we're not so much in favor of BRT, bus rapid transit. Introduction of transit into the SDA environments during pre-stages. Meanwhile, without these market forces, transit being key, the amount of subsidy required to accomplish the objective of SGA growth is several times higher. In my slides, I was showing you that one of the things we don't know is how much taxpayer money are we going to have to pay to subsidize the transit-oriented development. We don't know. Importance, fixed rail means compelling demand-side SGA, especially cannot be overstated. With market premiums given economic and graphics, you must have this here in order for the SGAs to be palatable to the private developer community. What this means is build it and they will come. Here are your strategic growth areas. You'll know conveniently it goes to Hilltop. Here's the original study area going down to the oceanfront. Tax incremental finance districts. A lot of this was said, oh, we're going to have this new urban development, it'll flow into the city funds, it'll help pay for schools, it'll help pay for city employees, it'll pay for police and fire. Not if it runs through a tax incremental finance district. Every cent of the increased value of property within a tax incremental finance district stays within the district to pay off the bond debt to subsidize the growth of the urban development. So, we don't know how much it's going to cost us to subsidize the transit-oriented development. So we know as a starting point, it's $48.1 million a year to our budget. This is the tide, it's a tidal wave of bill taxes. The cheerleaders want to tell you success is defined by ridership. Not so. It's done nothing to reduce traffic congestion. It has not improved the environment in Norfolk. And there has been no windfall of transit-oriented development. These are facts. Success? Hardly. 46% over budget. The CEO should have gone to jail. People broke the law. They kept 2 sets of books. We paid Phil Chiquette more money than the President of the United States to take over in place of Michael Townsend, run HRT. What did we get for it? Our 5,000 people a day during rush hour, reduce at best 700 people. Let me say that again. At best, 700 people are reduced. 40% of them get on at Newtown Road. So if you reduce it from that, you're taking off of Route 264 to Norfolk somewhere in the neighborhood of about 300 people. Ridership. These numbers look great, except that's every time you get on and off the train. If you ride the train to downtown Norfolk and you stop at Ballpark and then you go downtown and then you get a restaurant, you get back on and then you go back and then you go to your car, that's 5 trips. You count 5 times in the ridership. Feeder buses. Can't get money from Federal New Start program unless you build feeder buses to feed the light rail. Virginia Beach taxpayers pay 35%, the state pays 18%, federal government, the person in Hawaii, pays 28% for our feeder buses, and passengers just pay 19%. Sticker shock, we were told in April of 2011 it was going to cost $807 million. But here's our new numbers, $1.31 billion. Feeder bus system, got to add 2,000 more residents. Kind of looked at this old slide, had these numbers in here. This is our new slide. And I took out the fact that I estimated there would be cost overruns because we have a history of cost overruns. Even without any cost overruns, if HRT runs a perfect program, we still have to come up with $327 million that we're going to finance through bonds, Virginia Beach taxpayers. But not to worry, we have a AAA bond rating. Bankers love that. Talked quickly about Agenda 21, ICE-T, T21, which created Transportation Planning Organization and the Transportation District Commission Hampton Roads. All of this is about sustainable development. Regional government. We have all appointed unaccountable, it's citizen hostile, it's filled with special interest. It's a layer of decision-making outside of the General Assembly or our local governments. House Bill 1253 and Senate Bill 513 are looking to make it even more powerful, give it the ability to raise bond debt and set tolls. Light rail is a key component of the regional agenda through the Hampton Roads Partnership and the Chamber of Commerce. What's coming up next? We have the Virginia Beach Transit Extension. We're going to get a final environmental impact study. There's going to be a record of decision made on our local preferred alternative. City Council will vote on that, of those 3 options that I showed you. Which one do they want? There's going to be an FTA ranking. We're going to go into construction. We're going to run it. And Phil Chiquette's proposal to build it into Rosemont Road with private dollars is outside of this process. Next week, there are HRT, this is in the paper Thursday in Norfolk. Because the Senate put $8 million in this year's budget, nobody's waiting, baby. On Monday night, you can go to Granby High School. On Tuesday night, you can go to ODU Ted Convocation Center and ask a bunch of college kids, do you want light rail for free? Because the school pays for your ticket. No, I don't want that. They don't pay taxes. Wednesday night, you can go to the Waterside Marriott. What are you talking about? You're going to go in workshops and tell them, how do you want to run the light rail from downtown Norfolk out to the Navy base? The Naval Station Norfolk Transit Extension Study. The cancer is spreading. We talked a little bit about, and I know it's complicated, we don't have a lot of time, but we have a metropolitan planning organization. It's a regional body, and they make decisions about our air quality, what roads we build, and all of this. Also up in Richmond, we have an all-appointed body called the Commonwealth Transportation Board, and they handle the whole state. So all the money flows into Richmond, goes to Commonwealth Transportation Board, they approve certain projects, then they're going to send the money down to the new Transportation Accountability Commission, then they're going to decide what they build where and how and who they're going to hire and how it's going to get done. The executive director of the TPO is Dwight Farmer. He announced at the last special meeting last week that he is retiring on July 1st. He's done. So they don't have an executive director to take over the TPO or the new accountability. I tried my best to find out who they have in mind for that, and I've been unable to find out who will be running this. Who will be the person that we are going to pay a hefty salary to run this new all-appointed Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission. So on the day that this in the bill goes live, the new commission, and we kind of transition from the TPO to the new Transportation Accountability, Dwight steps down. I happen to think that Dwight Farmer is a good and decent guy. He's spent 35 years doing this. He's been the executive director for 6 years. And personally, I think it was a loss to the citizens of Tidewater that he's retiring. And I fear for whoever they pick to replace him. What does this mean? Toll Booth Bob's bill last year is planning to dump an additional $25 billion into our local all-appointed Transportation Accountability Commission over the next 26 years. Farmer said that at least $6 billion would be generated regionally because of the new transportation law Governor McDonald passed. Another 2.5 will come from new state transportation money, new taxes. The region will have unprecedented amounts of revenue which it will have to make decisions, Farmer said. The chess pieces are lining up, the money is flowing in, and instead of having people that you vote for that you can fire or are accountable to you, we're setting up an all-appointed body to go off and do whatever with the most expensive things in our region. Meanwhile, our good friend Aubrey Lane said, you know, a lot of people are mad because you got to buy these easy passes. And all these tolls require an easy pass. In the bill, all these new tolls, you must have an easy pass. Well, we have to pay 50 cents per month just as a fee, whether you use it or not. So he's deciding that the state is going to subsidize us for that 50 cent a month fee. So thank you, Aubrey. Yeah, that's a nice job. Aubrey Lane was appointed by Republican Governor Bob McDonald to the Commonwealth Transportation Board to represent Virginia Beach, the Commonwealth Transportation Board, and he's been appointed by Democratic Party Governor Terry McAuliffe to serve as our Secretary of Transportation. Aubrey Lane, the apartment building manager. The same Aubrey Lane who chaired the $449,000 PAC to mislead beach residents to vote yes on the referendum. the same Aubrey Lane that Governor McDonald appointed to be on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel Commission, who then in turn voted to raise the tolls on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, and he's now the chairman of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Commission. He states he's a strong supporter of tolls to fund projects to change people's behavior in regards to driving. He's also been appointed by the state to be the chairman of a nonprofit that was set up by Bob McDonald to issue all the bonds to finance a new Route 460. He was first appointed to the Commonwealth Transportation Board by Governor Tim Kaine during the House Bill 3202 issue. He was sworn into office January 12th of this year. He now oversees an agency with 100,000 employees and a $5 billion a year budget. Aubrey Lane. Prior to this, he was our representative. Where did he come from? When I first met Aubrey Lane, he was managing apartment complexes for Great Atlantic Properties, which he joined in 1994 and did this. And then before that, he worked at Hofheimer's. And he was an accountant at KPMG. The day before, or the Saturday before we voted on all of this referendum, I was invited to speak to the Virginia Beach Breakfast on light rail and debate Aubrey Lane. And I called him out on his misleading ads to encourage voters from that pack. And he basically said, I'm fine with that. If it gets people to vote for it and we need it, that's a good thing. Okay, this is your Secretary of Transportation of Virginia. This concludes my slides. The question we have to do now is contact our legislators, ask them to vote no, sit back and wait for them to ignore us, and then deal with the consequences, because this baby's coming. And just like light rail, there's not a whole hell of a lot anybody in this room is going to be able to do to stop it. So, I'm just here to give you the facts, answer your questions, and make you aware. Personally, my wife and I are talking about selling our house and moving away, and I'm not joking. Because I don't want to live here where there's going to be tolls everywhere, because when you give an all-appointed body one source of revenue and they're not accountable to anybody, what do you think they're going to do? That's what those bills are about. And they're introduced by Republicans, and they're being pushed through the General Assembly by Republicans, and people in this room have repeatedly gone to Richmond and begged them to reconsider, and they're told, I don't understand why you're upset. We need the ability, she's laughing, we need the ability to spend this money that Bob gave us. We've got to be able to issue bond debt. You get to control it locally instead of Richmond. You should be happy. Republicans should be creating less government, less debt, more efficiency, and spending the people's money wisely. The money we spend on this train at $300-something a service hour compared to $80 for the bus is criminal. But what's behind all of this are the people that contribute to the campaigns of the people who now represent us. We don't have representation, so I'll close with this. In 1773, a bunch of our ancestors had a stamp act imposed on them by the crown for your tea. And they were so incensed, they dumped tea in the Boston Harbor, and we had our very first tea party for taxation without representation. Tolls are taxes, people. I heard you all say it. Since tolls are taxes, and we can't vote for this elected body, and Aubrey Lane, our Secretary of Transportation, says, well, the reason this is constitutional versus House Bill 3202 is they don't have the power to tax. They just have the power to toll. Are we ignoring the spirit of why we have our country? Are we doing dumb things with the people's money? are we spending money on pipe dreams when we have real needs? I drove here from Virginia Beach.